Before I begin, I would like to give my immense gratitude to my sponsor, Jordan Hansen, who has guided me through this work, to Professor Shale Swift for being my mentor and showing me the joys of fieldwork, to those in Iceland who welcomed me with open arms, particular Haukur Igni Einarsson, to Whittier College, Knowles, SIT, Study Abroad, and of course my wonderful mothers for their never-ending support, my passions, and my family and friends who, adventurous spirits and full hearts, make these experiences more meaningful. So why glaciers? Well, glaciers have changed my life. They've given me purpose, and standing in their majesty, I have found bliss and spiritual resolve. It was on a trip to visit family in Norway, revisiting a glacier I climbed as a teenager, that I realized how quickly climate change is impacting our planet. The glacier had nearly vanished. That experience has led me to countless others, such as these pictured, where I'm pretending to fall off the ice. And since I've made ice the focus of my studies, travels, and life ambition. Glaciology is an evolving science during a time in which our increased understanding of glaciers will become critical to understanding and adapting to our future of life on Earth. Current glaciological research can predict the impacts of glacial change on a warming planet with steadily increasing precision in a variety of contexts. This study catalogs a diverse range of glacial impacts on human activity through a variety of geographic case studies. During this presentation, I'll cover just a few of those key concepts and case studies. So glaciers are found on every continent besides Australia, and many alpine glaciers exist along the equator, such as these glaciers in Indonesia and Africa. Glaciers have huge impacts on local environment and the billions of people that live near and far from ice. So glaciers occur when winter snowfall exceeds summer snowmelt, and over time the snow compresses into ice and begins to move with gravity under its own weight. The glacier has an accumulation zone and where the snow remains year long, and an ablation zone where ice melts away in the summer, and an equilibrium line that separates these areas. A healthy glacier has a majority accumulation zone, where a glacier that is losing mass has a larger ablation zone. Glaciers can form as alpine glaciers near the summits and cirques of mountains and flow down the mountain slopes and sometimes into valleys, fjords, or lakes. Glaciers can cover entire land masses and flow in all directions, referred to as ice caps or ice fields. The largest are referred to as ice sheets, of which there are two in the world, Antarctica and Greenland. So glaciers impact our planet through many more mechanisms than sea level rise. Glaciers actually stabilize global climate through their impacts on atmospheric temperature and ocean currents. Glaciers reflect solar energy, cooling the planet due to ice's high albedo or high reflectivity. But as ice mass shrinks, darker meltwater pools form on the ice surface, darker rock and sediment is revealed, ice is losing albedo, therefore reflecting less solar energy and contributing to a warming atmosphere. In the North Atlantic, the Gulf Stream, which stabilizes Western Europe's climate and provides nutrients to a rich marine ecosystem, is controlled by changes in density as it reaches the North Atlantic's saltier and cooler water. But melting ice is decreasing salinity, coupled with warming oceans, causing a decrease in density that could possibly collapse the Gulf Stream. Operation Icebridge is helping us understand the volume and extent and changes of mass to our polar ice. Operation Icebridge, run by NASA, is the largest aerial survey of ice ever conducted. It works by sending ice-penetrating radio waves to the surface from aircraft. These radio waves hit the top of the ice and the bedrock of the ice, and then bounce back to the aircraft, allowing us to estimate the ice thickness and bedrock topography. This understanding can help us predict current and future impacts of glacial melt on global systems. Glaciers are also reservoirs for the most critical resource in the world, fresh water. And late summer during melt season, they can be the only reliable source for fresh water. For instance, nearly 2 billion people live in water basins fed by the Himalaya, the most important of which are the Ganges and Indus River basins that are heavily sourced by glaciers. In non-monsoon months, it is estimated the majority of flow in these rivers can be contributed to glacial melt. The Wind River Range in Wyoming is home to the largest concentration of glaciers in the US Rocky Mountains. Glacial meltwater season also coincides with Wyoming's growing season, and these glaciers provide a consistent source of water for the region. Losing water sources could cripple the state's $800 million cattle industry, for instance. In much of the Pacific Northwest, streams and rivers are sourced by glaciers. The Pacific Northwest is also home to the world's most prolific salmon runs. For instance, the Nooksack River in Washington state is fed by glaciers on Como-Kulsan, known as Mount Baker. Meltwater from these glaciers provide consistent cool water and sediment that is critical for salmon habitat. Unique climatic and topographic properties in the Trinity Alps once supported California's lowest elevation glaciers, the only glaciers in the state below tree line. But following California's devastating 2012-2016 drought, one of these glaciers completely melted away, and the other broke apart, its ice now stagnant. The ice was found to harbor populations of a beetle endemic to the Trinity Alps and thrives fascinatingly in ice. The beetle's survival is very much tied to the remaining glacier, the Grizzly Glacier, whose stagnant ice points to a grim future. The ice is also part of an incredible and diverse interconnected ecological system in which water eventually flows to the tallest trees on Earth and some of the last remaining old-growth redwood forest. Snow accumulation on glaciers traps bubbles of gas. That snow is then compacted and the air bubbles become trapped in ice. This process occurs naturally annually on the glacier accumulation zone, and the bubbles preserve within them a record of atmospheric composition from that year. This has allowed us to reconstruct atmospheric carbon content dating back nearly 1 million years and observe the massive impact anthropogenic emissions have had on current atmospheric carbon content. Dr. M. Jackson, an Oregon State-based glaciologist and leader in research concerning the cultural and spiritual perceptions of glaciers and glacial change, writes that glaciers are more than just single stories of melting ice. Dr. Jackson argues that our perception is due to purely theoretical and Eurocentric dominated field of glacial research that incorporating a more open framework for research in glacial change can help integrate and understanding the many stories of glacial change. For instance, in the Andes Mountains of Peru, the Quechua people believe that a receding glacier on Mount Ausangati is a sign of the departure of their gods from the landscape and the introduction of a new epoch. Tens of thousands of Quechua would take part in a pilgrimage to the glacier each year to honor the appearance of their god on the mountain. Part of the ceremony would be to take a chunk of the glacier back to share with family and livestock, but that tradition is now banned due to preserve the glacier. Iceland is covered in 10% by ice and is consistently undergoing landscape, cultural, and ecological changes through glacial transformation. In fall 2020, I traveled to Iceland on an undergraduate study program centered on climate change's impacts on the Arctic and stayed in Hornafjörður, an area bordering the Vatnajökull ice cap, the largest in Iceland. I was quickly exposed to the island's changing glaciers and to the lives of those who are centered around glaciers. Many who live here grow up with stories of their ancestors and relatives' farms and homesteads being washed away by glacial floods, known as Jökulhlaups, caused by volcanic eruptions or plowed by advancing glaciers. Many of the elders live with fresh memories of such incidences. Glaciers present a constant struggle to the region, a constant battle with the elements, and many are actually relieved by the receding glaciers no longer threatening their livelihoods. Others are so used to glacial change and stories of glaciers receding and advancing that they believe climate-induced changes to Iceland's glaciers are just part of a natural cycle, saying that glaciers have always been changing. Breiðamerkurjökull means broad forest glacier in Icelandic. At the time of settlement, Iceland's glaciers were smaller than they are today, and forests once stood where the ice was. Although these forests are now coming back as the ice recedes at an unusual and alarming rate. Receding glaciers are completely transforming the Icelandic landscape. Many outlet glaciers from the Vatnajökull ice cap are revealing ice-carved depressions that form large proglacial lakes as the glacial terminus recedes. Isostatic rebound, a phenomenon that occurs when Earth's crust rises due to removal of the shear weight of the ice, is rising land around the island faster than sea level rise can flood it. Ice covers most of the island's volcanoes, and glaciers here act as a bottle cap. But once the ice is removed, volcanic activity is predicted to increase. Tourism in Iceland has skyrocketed during the recent decade to become one of its highest grossing economic sectors, 10% of its GDP, leading Iceland's economy to be highly dependent on tourism. Of all of Iceland's attractions, Vatnajökull National Park has attracted the most visitors, especially Jökulsárlón, the ever-expanding proglacial lake that fills with icebergs calving from the outlet glacier, Breiðamerkurjökull. This has created many new economic opportunities for Icelanders and currently employs thousands. As glaciers recede in Iceland, tour providing operations are becoming increasingly aware and constantly adapting to the impacts of climate change. As the knowledge of rapid glacier recession in Iceland grows, tourism to Iceland's glaciers increase as people wish to experience the ice before it vanishes. So through experiencing and learning about Icelanders' interaction with glaciers and perceptions of glacial change, I developed a sense of how powerful these bodies of ice were. Coupled with moments walking along the ice, the crunch of my crampons, interrupted only by the deep and full echoes of the ice, the pulsating glacial streams, and the loud thud of ice calving off the glacier terminus into the water, I began to understand why some Icelanders perceive glaciers as alive. The intense beauty of the ice that would stop me in my tracks as I paused to breathe with the glacier, to feel and listen to its heartbeat, and to try to comprehend what was before me. It was hard not to feel the aliveness myself. So to end this presentation, I have a slideshow of the photographs I captured with my 35mm Canon, as I hope to capture that feeling. This slideshow is coupled with drone footage I took as part of a film I created with Glacier Adventure Tour Group, and the song is called Helvegen by Warduna. It is a song about death, about crossing over, and about letting go. Let me just change the share. Thank you.